2024, I believe the Nikon ZF is the most unique value camera on the market. The Nikon ZF is the rare breed of camera that is both the cool, fun, sexy camera, but also the practical, versatile, useful camera. At the end of this video, you can agree or disagree, but this is my case. The cool camera meets the practical camera. What do I mean by that? What is a cool camera and what is a practical camera? Let's define those two things. I believe that there are two types of camera people. The first group of people that buy cameras are people who are looking for a cool, sexy camera. These are your Fuji and Leica shooters. These types of people use a camera as a fashion statement. They want it to look cool. They want it to feel cool, be a tactile, analog experience. And they want their photos to look cool and express their aesthetic to the world. The second group of people look at a camera as a tool to get a job done. These are people who shoot weddings, shoot events, or they just want to capture their family moments. These people usually shoot Canon, Sony, and Panasonic. Now, the Nikon ZF is a rare camera that can be both. Why is the Nikon ZF fun and cool? Well, it has the looks, has the brass dials, has the amazing build quality that reminds you of a tank. The Nikon ZF has some voodoo going on with its manual focus system. It's the first camera that I've ever used that put a dumb adapter with like a vintage lens on it, and you can still get subject and eye detection. If you get a manual Z-mount lens, like the lenses that Voigtlander makes, it will go one step further. It will, you don't even have to punch in. The subject detection box will turn green if you focus it. And so you don't even have to punch in. You can just focus directly, get that green confirmation, and fire your shot. I've never seen a camera that could do that before. And another reason why I love the camera, which is completely subjective, I got addicted to the sound of the shutter. When it's in burst mode and you fire off, high speed continuous, it feels like a machine gun. It feels like a AK-47 in your hands. So why is the Nikon ZF useful? Why is it the practical, useful camera? It has the latest Nikon processor, as the X-Speed 7, whatever processor. It's the same processor that's in the Nikon Z8 and the Nikon Z9. So what does that mean? It means you get top of the line autofocus performance. You have Nikon's best technology in this camera. For video, they gave you 10-bit color. I know like a lot of the cameras these days are starting to have 10-bit color, but in the past, you were not getting 10-bit color on the mid-range levels of cameras. You're only getting it on the top of the line flagship cameras. And then for content creation, they give you the flip out screen, which I know people they prefer the tilt out screen. The flip out screen has a lot of advantages too. It's great for video, it's great for filming yourself. What I personally love about it is you can fold it in, make the camera look like a film camera, and just only use the EVF, which I really like that experience. And then lastly, IBIS. It has really, really good IBIS. So what else? The colors. Nikon colors, I didn't know much about Nikon going in. I find Nikon colors to be a little sterile, but what I've come to appreciate about Nikon colors, they don't pop instantly like Fuji or Canon colors. They're definitely better than Sony colors, and they're definitely better than Panasonic colors. But I would not say that they're better than Leica, Canon, or Fuji colors. However, the thing that I've come to appreciate about Nikon colors is that they're very accurate and they start off in a very neutral place. So it's very easy to push the colors to exactly the place where you want to put them to. Whereas like when I've shot with Fuji cameras in the past or Canon cameras, that look, for better or worse, is pretty baked in. And when I move around the skin tones, especially with the other systems, I can't dial it in exactly how I want to dial it in. There's always like this color bias with those brands, which I can't 100% get rid of. And I find with the Nikon cameras and the Nikon colors is that there's less of a bias. so that I can dial in the exact look that I want. It actually reminds me of Leica colors, because with Leica colors, I was also starting from a very clean, neutral place, and I was able to push the color to exactly where I want it to be. Glass. Nikon has one of the, or if not the most extensive lens catalog out of any camera brand. They were making lenses and optics before Canon even existed. And so that's well before, I mean, decades before Sony, Fuji, Panasonic were making lenses. And then the last thing that underscores every point that I've made before this is the price. That's way cheaper than a comparable camera from other brands that have all the features. The only thing that's a little bit cheaper is maybe the S5 because they're always running crazy sales on it, but it's definitely cheaper than the A7 IV lineup. It's cheaper than the Canon R6 Mark II. It's cheaper than obviously the R5. For a full frame setup, it's very cheap. Okay, let's talk about some nitpicks I have with the camera before we come full circle and wrap this video up. The grip. I think the combination of like the leatherette material that they're using, straight out of the box, it's very slippery. It almost feels like plastic. Over time, the oils from your hand and your skin will go into the leatherette, and it does feel better over time. I think the combination of like the weight and the slipperiness of it and the fact there is no grip makes it a little bit uncomfortable to hold at first. But once you get used to holding it by the lens or wearing it with a strap or using the small rig grip, those concerns go away. So I wouldn't not buy the camera just for that. I think in a perfect world, if the camera was like 10% smaller and lighter and the leatherette material was more premium or more tactile, and then there was just like a slight bit more grip, I think the camera would have been perfect ergonomically wise. The micro SD card. I will say it's really hard to get the micro SD card out of the slot. You have to remove the battery first, but you could also just leave a large micro SD in there and just never take it out, I guess. The battery door is the cheapest feeling part of the entire camera. It's like they made this premium metal hunk of beautiful design, and then they just put kind of like, I don't know, the door just feels a little flimsy compared to the rest of the body. I also don't love when the SD cards are by the battery. Prosumer mirrorless cameras, I like them better when they have the SD card slot in a different place on the body. And then lastly, the 4K 60 crop. Nikon put the fastest processor into the Nikon ZF body, and the Z8 and Z9 can read out like crazy levels of video spec. So I don't know why the ZF couldn't just have 4K 60 with no crop. When I look at the list of nitpicks and I compare the list of things I love about the camera, the things I love about the camera far outweigh the things that annoy me about the camera. And I just find that it is a very unique value proposition that Nikon has jam-packed into this camera, because they're playing catch up to Sony and Canon and even Fuji. They had to put their best foot forward, and I'm so glad they did. I think the Nikon ZF is a kind of camera that you could hold on to forever. Beautifully designed, it's extremely capable, and it's really fun to use. I think that's an important thing to highlight. It's really fun to use. And then lastly, this camera can be anything that you want it to be in 2024. If you put the right lens on it, it can be a Fuji X100VI. With the flip out screen and with the right lens, it can be a Sony EV1. It can be that practical, useful A7 IV or Canon R6 Mark II. It can be that as well. It can be a Leica SL2S. The great thing about the Z mount is that you can adapt it to any lenses in the history of mankind. You can put on the Z mount. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. Thanks for listening to my rant about the Nikon ZF, why I love it, why it's such a unique value proposition in 2024, I have a confession to make. I actually sold my Nikon ZF last month, and I picked up the Nikon Z8. And if you stick with me in the next video, I will explain to you why I sold my favorite camera of all time, the Nikon ZF, and why I'm using the Nikon Z8 now. Stay tuned.